Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Plus. I'm Shweta Kothari. We're bringing you stories from the world of business, policy and economy. First up, let's take a look at headlines. Government asks iPhone maker Apple to join probe on hacking alert. Apple sent out threat notification warning of state-sponsored attack on phones belonging to opposition leaders as well as academics. Q2 GDP growth may surprise on the upside. As per RBI Governor Shaktikanta, early indicators hint at momentum in economic activity. GDP growth for Q2 is pegged at 6.5%. Government could lower import duties on EVs, move to impact Tesla's foray in India at a lucrative price point. And X, formerly known as Twitter, is now valued at $19 billion, down 55% from $44 billion valuation last year. All those stories right here on Business Plus with me, Karthik Malhotra. Karthik, good morning.
Morning, Shweta.
A whole host of stories coming in, but let's quickly first begin with the biggest story we've been tracking since yesterday, which is Apple's threat alerts sent out to various opposition party leaders as well as academics, journalists. Government says it's now starting a probe and wants Apple to cooperate.
Absolutely, and I think Apple has to cooperate. There is no way that this probe can be initiated or can be concluded without Apple really laying its card out open. I think it is imperative to understand that while Apple in its own statement has said that it does not want to disclose the algorithm it uses to detect state-sponsored attacks. And what are these state-sponsored? We'll just come to that also. But I think in a closed inquiry, it is absolutely imperative that Apple lays out its cards face open, telling very clearly where did the trigger come from, what were the hack attempts, be able to detect the location, the IP address of the device used to try and intrude into those phones which have received this threat notification, and at the same time help as quickly as possible arrive at the identity of the potential hackers, as they are perhaps in this case. Now, how does Apple define state-sponsored attacks versus cybercrime? Right. I think Apple very clearly mentions in its support page, and this was a link that I was referred to after I had written to Apple India MD Virat Bhatia yesterday, and that very clearly defines that a cybercrime is an activity in which a small group of people, perhaps not well funded, is carpet bombing, going after a large section of the population, hoping that it will be able to net at least a few, and extort or use them for whatever gains that unethical gains that they desire. Whereas in the case of state-sponsored attacks, Apple's definition is that this is an attack which is well funded and is targeted only to a few number of select individuals. Now, in its statement, after we had sent a query to Apple yesterday, in its statement, Apple said that it does not attribute this to any specific state. Okay. So, I think a lot of questions unanswered. Question number one, how do you define clearly that when you say this is state-sponsored, what do you mean by state-sponsored? I mean, you could have a well-funded non-state organization funding a few individuals to go after a few individuals. So specifically, how do you as a company say that this is state sponsored attack, and how do you specify and how do you detect which is the state which is after these individuals? Number one. Number two, algorithm. If not, we understand, it is IP, it is something that may embolden hackers further if Apple comes out publicly and states the algorithm it uses and the logic on which the algorithm is built. But that aside, I think in a private investigation, it has to lay out its algorithm and help agencies and help investigators understand exactly how a few individuals get targeted in a large population. And then, of course, I mean, is this, if this is indeed a state-sponsored, whichever state in question, if this is state-sponsored, then is this a select handful number of individuals only, or are there more people that whichever state in question here is likely to go after?
Okay, so here's what we know so far. Certain individuals primarily belonging to opposition parties, including TMC, INC, have been targeted. Their phones, or there was an attempt made on their phones to hack into their data, and a notification was sent out which when shared on Twitter had quite a few details. Number one, that it is a state-sponsored attack or a state-sponsored attacker. Number two, these people were targeted because of who they are.
That's right.
And what they do.
That's right. So let's read this specifically. So the alert, the subject of the alert said state-sponsored attackers may be targeting your phone. The subject says Apple believes you are being targeted by state-sponsored attackers who are trying to remotely compromise the iPhone associated with your Apple ID. These attackers are likely targeting you individually because of who you are or what you do. If your device is compromised by a state-sponsored attacker, they may be able to remotely access your sensitive data, communications, or even the camera and microphone. While it's possible this is a false alarm, please take this warning seriously.
Okay.
So I think another clarification coming in Apple's message to us, suggesting that sometimes these could be false alarms, sometimes these could be inaccurate revelations coming by way of the system triggering alarms on the basis of its assumption, and sometimes these could be completely misdirected in nature as well.
Okay, from state-sponsored, the classic dictionary definition is when it is sponsored by either a group of people who belong to the state. In this case, there could be a state agency, a state essentially could be central government, or could be other governments in other states.
Could
but
be
it's
another
a
country,
very serious charge.
It is no doubt a very serious charge, and I think the fact that a select number of individuals who are not part of the sitting government in India have received this trigger, have received this threat notification. Obviously, a very thorough probe investigation needs to be done, and needs to be done fast. And for this, both Government of India and Apple have to collaborate. And I think the real question hanging in the air is going to be about the objectivity of the report and who's going to put that final stamp of approval. Should it be the CAG? Should it be CERT-in? Should it be the nodal body which is which goes after cybercrime, or should it be some other private investigative agency? But I think who gives that stamp on approval on the final report as and when it gets investigated and concluded and released is something which is going to define how objectively, if at all, the investigation was done.
All right, and IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav also spoke to the media asking for Apple's cooperation. Let's quickly listen into that conversation.
Friends, these compulsive critics, they have only one habit. Whenever they don't have any major issue, the only thing they'll say is surveillance. This they have tried few years back. We conducted a proper investigation. The matter was supervised by the Honorable Judiciary also. Nothing came out of that investigation, including Ms. Priyanka Gandhi Vadra. She said that her 2 children's phones were hacked, but nothing of that sort had actually happened. So this is a falsehood that some compulsive critics are trying to spread. They want to distract the country, they want to distract the people from the progress that the country is making under Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji's leadership.
All right, IT Minister saying this is a distraction. Not a distraction for sure. It is an important allegation, one that needs to be probed further.
So I think, both opposition as well as ruling government are calling this a distraction of sorts. Rahul Gandhi alleging that this is a distraction ploy by the government of India, by the Modi government, because the Adani issue is being raked up by Rahul Gandhi and the INC. And at the same time, Ashwini Vaishnav there saying that, this is a detraction by the opposition, which is Congress in this case. I think, to just conclude, it is absolutely imperative. I mean, political jibes will keep happening anytime any issue of national interest rakes up. And remember, we are heading into election season. So I think it is critical that an independent probe is quickly initiated. It has been initiated, it has been ordered, and it has to reach some sort of a conclusion and be released at the earliest.
All right. A probe, of course, needed on that matter. We'll keep tracking all those details as and when they emerge. But shifting focus to a story we're tracking by the way of India's growth. In Q2, India's growth could surprise on the upside. That's the statement coming in from RBI Governor, saying that the early indicators suggest that the growth could be not just 6.5%, which is a target, but over 6.5%.
Yeah, I mean, let's hope so, because end of this month, end of November, today is the new month, 1st November, end of November is when we are hoping to see the print of GDP for Q2, which was the quarter that ended in September, to come out. Early expectations suggested that 6.5%, bang 6.5%, which is also the annual growth target for India for FY24, will be reflected reflected in Q2, and Q3 would see a slightly higher and Q4 a slightly lower number, averaging it out squarely to 6.5% annual growth for India. Now, RBI Governor yesterday at a Business Standard event coming on record and saying that early numbers, early data suggests that there could be an upside surprise for all those who are watching the Indian economy closely, and 6.5 was the expectation. Anything that goes above 6.5, of course, is going to be a moment of rejoice for not just the government, but I think for every Indian as well, and all those who are looking at India as a great investment market. But particularly what stood out for me, Shweta, was the statement that Shaktikanta, the RBI governor, said, in fact, hinting at financial sector players, saying that, when you look at the India story, you've got to look at the India story long term. So play the long term game, and he literally said, play like Rahul Dravid. So that's the message that RBI Governor Shaktikanta is giving to financial sector players, and overall a great, better than expectations print expected for Q2 on GDP growth numbers.
Play like Rahul Dravid. I mean, I don't know who's the alternative there or the other one to not play like, but essentially play like a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's going to be a long-term story.
Absolutely. Look at the long-term story. There are going to be, of course, I mean, the governor had also said that there are going to be short-term volatility around oil, the ongoing conflict, two ends, in fact, Russia, Ukraine, of course, and Israel, Hamas. So geopolitical tensions will perhaps pose a challenge, but I think overall, it seems that the RBI governor, much like the rest of the world, is fairly bullish on the India growth story.
And on track, India growth story there, on track. That's the message coming in from RBI governor. But moving away to a story we're tracking by the way of India's EV ambitions, it appears that Tesla could soon get some sort of relief, respite. It's been asking for a cut in excise duty from current 70%. Could come down to 15 to 30%. That is what media reports are suggesting.
Yeah, so these are all source-based reports that we are reading. In fact, the story we are referring to appeared in the Mint newspaper today. But in the month of September this year, at a private event, I had the opportunity of meeting Industry Minister Mr. Piyush Goyal, and I was there along with my colleague Krishna Kumar, who's anchoring the next show, in fact, which you must watch 15 minutes from now or so, called World Business Report. But Krishna and I had spoken to Piyush Goyal and asked him categorically, what is the plan for Tesla's entry into India? Of course, much like most ministers in the sitting government, he did not give us, a concrete answer. And he said that all this is going to emerge slowly. He did not say that, no, the doors for Tesla's entry are closed. And neither did he tell us that there is going to be a policy tweak. But I think this policy tweak has been in the making for a while. Remember, there have been two instances where Elon Musk and his team have visited India and pushed for some sort of a relaxation when it comes to import duties. Now, like you mentioned, import duties are about 70% right now for cars which are priced below 40,000 US dollars. This number is 100% excise duty for cars which are in excess of 40,000 US dollars. Now, Tesla is very clear. It wants to introduce a low-cost electric vehicle, which could be maybe a smaller version of the Model S, or perhaps an all-new electric vehicle altogether, designed for the Indian market and for perhaps emerging economies like India. And $24,000 is what is estimated to be the cap, which brings down the INR converted value to about 20 lakh rupees for a Tesla car. Remember, the same Model S is sold in the US upwards of about $33,000. So something like that, maybe a little smaller, trimmed down version at about $24,000. But I think the story really becomes exciting as the government is now perhaps hinting, source-based media reports hinting that we could look at EVs because of the EV policy push, the national policy for EV that the government has initiated, to bring down the cost on completely built units, CBUs, which are full-fledged cars being imported into India, at par with completely knocked down regular cars, non-EV cars. And that excise duty is about 15% to 20% or so. So if entry-level EVs, entry-level foreign-made, completely imported units are priced at CBU sort of levels of import duties, it is great news for Tesla, definitely. Not great news for many other Indian players who would be looking at this with a great deal of resentment.
Absolutely. A lot of resentment, suspicion as well. But Let's talk about what's in for consumers. Are you saying that a Tesla car could now be priced at about
anything
20
between 20 to,
30
let's say,
lakh?
30 lakh rupees, 20 to 25 lakh rupees, if Elon Musk is able to
Get
come
that
up with
policy change?
a smaller car, which does not sell yet perhaps in US, because the cheapest car is the Model S, which is $33,000. So perhaps get a cheaper car. Along with that, get lower import duties and sell in India. I think the government's objective here really is, one way or another, let's get Elon Musk excited. He's facing trouble in China. Sales are slowing down in the US. Obviously, for Elon Musk, India is a great big market to exploit with his cars of all kinds, right? I mean, entry level to big cars. But bring in Elon Musk, even if these are imported cars to begin with, let them come in gradually. As Elon Musk wants to scale up production, sell more in India, get him to invest in India, avail of the PLI scheme, no problem, but get him to invest in India, make in India and sell in India. So from, let's say, about 30, 40,000, 50,000 units that get sold for the first 2 years, suddenly with the investment coming in India, that can be taken up to, let's say, about 3 lakh, 4 lakh units.
Okay, and so what happens to the existing players in-house, Tatas
So I
and
think
Mahindras of India?
Mahindras perhaps not as much to my mind. Tata's definitely, because they have taken this early entry into electric vehicles, would be looking at this deal, you know, suspecting some sort of an unfair sort of, you know, advantage, or, you know, accruing to Elon Musk and to Tesla. I think the other premium cars, Audi, BMW, Mercedes, etc., in any case have part manufacturing in India, part import, and their business is unlikely to get impacted.
Okay.
We are looking at a 20 to 30 lakh rupee price range car, and Tata SUVs particularly, EV models are all going to fall into that bracket going forward.
Range.
So it is definitely going to be an issue for them.
But competition heating up, more variety for consumers.
Better competition, better for the consumer.
Absolutely, better for consumers. Perhaps you could buy a Tesla very soon in the price range of 20 to 30 lakh rupees. But staying on with Elon Musk, all is not well as far as Twitter is concerned. Valuation for Twitter has declined by approximately 56% in just a year.
Yeah, Shweta. So I think, you know, we've just, let's pull up some of the graphics that we've made, which are fairly interesting. So, you know, we've tried to do a comparison last year and this year. October 2022 is when Elon Musk had bought Twitter for $44 billion. And October 2023, exactly 1 year later, the value has been marked down to about $19 billion or so. So that is about a 55% decline. Now, when Twitter was acquired last year, it was slated to promote free speech. Now, what is Elon Musk facing today? Today, X has become a platform which is spreading more disinformation, especially in the context of the Israel-Hamas war. So, what was supposed to be a free speech platform and a super
regulated
regulated free speech has now been, you know, just condemned to a platform for disinformation. So that is the second thing that you know, that we are looking at today. Now, Twitter had originally for the last 10 years offered the blue tick. You had one. It was a blue tick which sort of authenticated the source of truth, that this is a verified user, and that helped it contain disinformation, misinformation. Now, what did Elon Musk do? He got X, he started selling the blue tick, and pretty much anybody who had $8 to spare could own a blue tick and become the source of mistrust or disinformation. Now, 1 year since Twitter's acquisition, we have seen that Elon Musk is right now not just looking at a markdown value of Twitter itself, but his own personal wealth has also come down. We are seeing a situation where advertisers are fleeing the platform. They don't want to be associated with the platform. All the grand plans that Twitter had about building a super app, we haven't seen anything roll out. Fact checkers have been sacked. More than half, 60-70% of policy team has been sacked. So, you know, a lot of critical resources that gave authenticity and veracity to Twitter as a platform for information have been done away with. A commercial operation at X has not kick-started. Revenues are not coming in. Existing advertisers are going out. Overall, I think a decision that Elon Musk, if not publicly, privately, would be regretting.
Okay, is it bleeding out Elon Musk? Looks like it. Private wealth, personal wealth is down. Twitter's overall valuation is also less than half today. We're of course tracking all those details on News 9. We've run out of time on this show. Thank you very much for watching.